Kentucky does not tax your Social Security check, not a penny of it. While you are still comparing what counts as taxable income in other states, Kentucky already shields your first $31,110 in pension or 401k money too, and knocks $49,100 off your home's value the day you turn 65. That's the actual tax code, not a rumor. Here's what nobody selling you a retirement calculator will say out loud. Kentucky still has an income tax. We are not going to pretend otherwise. But once those exemptions stack on top of each other, the actual cost of living here often beats states that only brag about no income tax on a billboard and stop the story there. We're covering 8 Kentucky towns with real rent numbers, real crime numbers, and real trade-offs. No sugarcoating. Stick around for the last one. It might change where you're looking entirely. Number 8, Maysville, sitting right on the Ohio River in the northeast corner of the state. Median rent here runs around $721 a month, one of the lowest numbers on this whole list, and the median home value sits near $137,500, which is about 40% below the national figure. Remember, Kentucky will not touch your Social Security check, and once you are 65, that homestead exemption trims another $49,100 off what the county can tax you on. Maysville still has its old riverfront downtown, brick storefronts, a working ferry crossing, the kind of town that looks like it was built for a slower morning. Now here's the honest part. Crime here runs above the national average, mostly property crime, not the violent kind, but it is real enough that you should look at a specific street before you sign a lease, not just the town's reputation. That's the trade you are making for that $721 a month rent. If you can live with locking your car and knowing your neighbors, Maysville stretches a fixed income about as far as it goes in this state. If a quiet river view is worth a little extra caution, keep this one in your back pocket. Picture the actual morning here. Fog sitting low over the river, a barge easing past so slow you could time it with a coffee refill, somebody's screen door slamming 2 blocks over because in a town this size, sound travels like gossip. Maysville is not trying to impress anyone, and that is sort of the point. Nobody is selling you a lifestyle here. They are just selling you a house you can actually afford on what you already have coming in. And here's the part worth sitting with. A town this size cannot hide its numbers behind marketing. What you see in the crime data is what is actually happening on the ground, not a polished tourism board version of it. That is uncomfortable if you are used to glossy brochures, but it is also exactly the kind of honesty this list is built on. If the trade-off works for your budget, Maysville rewards you with river views most people never get to wake up to. Next up, a college town where your neighbors might be 20 and your rent is still under $1,000. Number 7, Murray, out in the western part of the state, home to Murray State University, which means you get a real downtown, a real hospital nearby, and a surprising amount of live music for a town this size. Rent runs anywhere from about $817 to just over $1,000 a month depending on the source and the neighborhood, and living costs overall sit around 14% below the national average. Kentucky's state tax picture stays the same here as everywhere on this list. Your Social Security check is untouched, your pension exclusion still applies, and the homestead break still kicks in at 65. Now, the honest caveat. Crime numbers on Murray genuinely depend on which source you check. Some put it right around the state average. One independent source puts it noticeably higher. We're telling you that range up front instead of picking whichever number makes the town look better, because that's exactly the kind of thing other lists gloss over. What you get in exchange is a town with actual amenities, a college town energy that keeps things from going quiet at 7 in the evening, and a lake 20 minutes away if you want to spend a fixed income on fishing instead of a mortgage. Next, a bourbon town where the tourists spend money and the retirees just quietly enjoy the discount. Here's the trade you're actually making in a college town. Your grocery store checkout line moves slower in August because half the cashiers just went back to class, and your quiet Tuesday night might get loud once a semester when the football team wins something. But you also get a real pharmacy, a real library, and enough foot traffic downtown that businesses stay open past 6. Picture retirement where the loudest thing on your street is a marching band practicing 3 blocks away. Not silence, not sirens, just a town that still has some life left in it. The mixed crime numbers deserve one more honest sentence. When sources disagree this much, the responsible move isn't to average them into something reassuring. It's to go look at the specific neighborhood you're considering before you sign anything. That's true of every town on this list, but it matters more here than most. Number 6. Bardstown, the self-declared bourbon capital of the world, which means tourists foot a lot of the local economy while residents get the benefit of a town that actually has restaurants worth visiting. Median rent sits around $817 a month, and the median home value is about $173,300, both comfortably under the national numbers. Same tax stack applies. No state tax on your Social Security check. Up to $31,110 shielded on qualifying pension or retirement income. And that $49,100 trimmed off your home's assessed value once you turn 65. The honest catch here is property crime, which runs a bit above the national rate even though violent crime stays low. So this is a town where you lock the car and don't leave the porch furniture out overnight. In exchange, you get a walkable, historic downtown, distillery tours you can do on foot, and a food scene that punches well above what a town this size should have. It's proof that affordable doesn't have to mean nothing to do. If bourbon and history aren't your thing, don't worry. The next town trades all of that for something quieter: handmade crafts, mountain air, and one of the lowest crime rates on this entire list. Picture a Tuesday afternoon here. Barrel warehouses lined up along the road like sleeping giants, the smell of char and oak drifting over from a distillery. You can smell before you see it. Tourists taking photos of a building you drive past without a second look because you live here now. That's the strange trade of Bardstown. The thing everyone else pays $50 for a tasting to experience is just the air you breathe on your way to the pharmacy. Number 5. Berea, known across the state as the arts and crafts capital, full of working studios, a college that trades tuition for hands-on craftsmanship, and a downtown built around actually making things instead of just selling them. Rent here runs around $739 to $879 a month, and the overall cost of living sits about 16% below the national average. And this is where the numbers get genuinely good. Berea's crime rate runs about 56% below the national average, one of the safest towns on this whole list. The Kentucky tax stack still applies in full, your Social Security check stays untouched, the pension exclusion still shields over $31,000 of retirement income, and the senior homestead break still knocks tens of thousands off your taxable home value. If there's a catch here, it's pace. Berea is genuinely slow, more folk music than nightlife, more porch conversation than restaurants open past 9. For some retirees, that's the entire appeal. For others, it might feel a little too quiet by month 3. Either way, the safety numbers alone make Berea worth a serious look if you've been putting crime rate above almost everything else on your list. Coming up, a lake town where the property values are still catching up to how nice it actually is. Picture a Saturday morning here. A potter's kiln still warm from the night before, a fiddle tuning up somewhere you can't quite see, and a farmer's market that runs on cash and trust more than card readers. Berea built its whole identity around making things by hand, which means the pace of the town matches the pace of the work. Nobody's rushing you here, including the traffic. Number 4. Somerset, built around Lake Cumberland, one of the largest man-made lakes in the country, which means your retirement can include a boat without requiring a coastal property tax bill to match. Median rent lands around $789 a month, and the median home value is just $131,900, a fraction of the national number. Crime here runs about 48% below the national average, putting Somerset solidly among the safer towns on this list. Kentucky's exemptions apply the same way they do everywhere in this state. Nothing taken from your Social Security check, a 5-figure exclusion on pension and retirement income, and a meaningful cut to your taxable home value once you hit 65. The honest trade-off in Somerset is specialist healthcare. Basic care and a hospital are close by, but if you need a specific specialist, you may be looking at a drive to a bigger city, so factor that into your decision if you're managing an ongoing condition. What you get back is water views most people pay resort prices for, a genuinely low cost of living, and a crime rate that lets you actually relax on that porch. Next, a small college town that keeps showing up on Safest in Kentucky lists for a reason. Picture your evenings here. The lake going gold right before sunset, a dock 2 minutes from your front door instead of a 2-hour drive, and a whole retirement built around a body of water most people only see on vacation. Somerset runs on tourism dollars in the summer and genuine small-town quiet the rest of the year, which is about as good a split as a fixed income can ask for. Just don't let the lake distract you from the one gap worth planning around. If your health needs a specialist rather than a general checkup, ask now whether that specialist is in Somerset or an hour away, because that answer changes how comfortable this pick really is. Number 3. Danville, home to a small liberal arts college and one of the more consistently safe towns anywhere in this state. Median rent runs about $817 a month, and the overall cost of living sits around 11% below the national average. The safety numbers are the real headline. Overall crime is about 24% below the national average, and violent crime specifically is down around 75%, numbers that hold up across more than a decade of data, not just one good year. The state-level breaks are identical to everywhere else on this list. Your Social Security check stays untouched. A sizable chunk of pension, or 401k income, is shielded, and your home's taxable value drops once you turn 65. If there's a downside, it's that Danville is small enough that big box shopping and specialty stores mean a short drive, not a walk. But for a retiree who wants low crime, a walkable downtown, and a college town's quiet cultural pulse, without paying college town prices, Danville is hard to beat on paper. Coming up, horse country, a name that trips up almost everyone who tries to say it, and a tax bill that's a little higher than you'd expect for how safe it is. Picture the version of retirement where you can walk to a coffee shop, sit through a lecture at the local college just because it's free and open to the public, and still be home before the streetlights come on because nothing here really happens after dark. That's not a knock. For a lot of retirees, that's the entire dream. Danville just happens to back it up with numbers that hold up under scrutiny. Number 2, Versailles. And no, it's not pronounced like the palace in France. Locals say it Versailles, and getting that wrong at the diner is basically a rite of passage. This is horse country, rolling bluegrass farms, and some of the most photographed real estate in the state. Rent for a 1 or 2 bedroom typically runs from $740 to $955, though larger homes in the area push the average higher, so don't assume the whole town price is like a small apartment. Crime here runs about 48% below the state average, genuinely low. All the same, Kentucky breaks apply, no state tax on your Social Security check, over $31,000 shielded on qualifying retirement income, and that homestead exemption once you are 65. The honest catch is that Versailles has gotten more expensive over the past few years as its proximity to Lexington and the horse industry pulls in demand. So the deal here isn't quite as dramatic as some of the smaller towns on this list. What you are paying for is genuine natural beauty and a level of safety that's hard to find this close to a mid-sized city. Last one coming up, and it might be the most well-rounded pick on this entire list. Picture the drive into town at dawn, white plank fences running for miles, horses already out grazing before you have had coffee, mist sitting in the low fields like something out of a painting nobody had to pay for. It's the kind of scenery people fly in just to photograph. You would just be living in it, on a fixed income, in a town that still says your name right at the post office, even when the town's own name trips up half the country. Just budget honestly for it. Versailles isn't the cheapest name on this list anymore, and pretending otherwise would undercut the entire point of this video. You are paying a small premium for proximity and scenery, not getting away with something. Number 1. Elizabethtown, and here's why it tops this list instead of the smaller, cheaper towns we started with. Median rent runs around $909 a month, and the overall cost of living sits about 13% below the national average. Solid numbers, but not the cheapest on this list. What pushes Elizabethtown to the top is everything else. Crime here runs about 60% below the national average, the best safety number of any town we've covered today. And because it sits near Fort Knox and a genuine regional medical center, actual hospital access is close by. Not a 40-minute drive down a 2-lane road, which matters more than almost anything else once you're managing more than one prescription. The full Kentucky tax stack applies here just like everywhere else on this list. Your Social Security check stays untouched, your pension or 401k gets a 5-figure exclusion, and your home's taxable value drops once you turn 65. If healthcare access matters more to you than shaving another $100 off rent, tell us in the comments which of these 8 towns you'd actually pick, because the right answer really does depend on what you're optimizing for. And if you want the next state broken down with the same honest numbers, no sugarcoating, subscribe, because we're not done finding the towns where your check still means something. Picture the actual difference this makes at 3 a.m. Not the brochure version, the real one. Chest pain, or a bad fall, or a medication reaction. And the question that actually matters is how many minutes stand between you and a doctor who can help. In Elizabethtown, that answer is a lot shorter than in most of the towns we just covered. That's not a small thing to build a retirement around. That's arguably the only thing. So that's 8 towns in the same state, running the same tax stack, and landing on 8 genuinely different trade-offs. If you want the lowest rent and can live with keeping an eye on property crime, look at Maysville or Bardstown. If college town energy is worth some inconsistent crime data to you, that's Murray. Berea and Danville are the picks if safety is the number driving your decision. Somerset gets you a lake view without a coastal price tag as long as you plan around the specialist care gap. Versailles trades a little extra rent for scenery that's hard to find anywhere else this affordable. And Elizabethtown takes the top spot because hospital access is the number that actually keeps most retirees up at night, not rent. What doesn't change from town to town is the state-level deal underneath all of it. Your Social Security check stays untouched, a real chunk of your pension or 401k is shielded, and your property taxes drop once you turn 65. What changes is which trade-off you're willing to live with. Tell us which one made your list, and if you want the next state broken down with the same honest numbers, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.